Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Lauren Perreault, your Portland Metro real estate specialist, and I'm here every single week breaking down the numbers so you know exactly what's happening in our market. This week covers sales activity for the week of June 1st through June 7th, 2026. I'm going to spend a few minutes today because there's genuinely a lot to unpack. On the surface, some of the year-over-year comparisons look soft. Prices down a few percent, days on market ticking a little higher than last year. But when you look at the full picture, including what's happening with buyer demand, with the pipeline of homes under contract, and with what sellers are actually getting at closing, the story is more nuanced and, honestly, more encouraging than those headline numbers suggest. Let's dig in. Okay, let's start with supply because the inventory picture is setting the stage for everything else right now. Active listings came in at 7,720 this week. That's up from 7,523 the prior week, a 2.6 jump in just 7 days. To put that in perspective, inventory peaked around 8,500 listings last fall before pulling back. So we're not at those highs, but we are building steadily as we move into summer. Year over year, active inventory is actually down about 2.4% compared to the same week last year when there were 7,908 active listings. So even though inventory feels elevated relative to the winter months, we're still below where we were a year ago on a comparable week. That's an important context point. New listings this week, 788 homes came to the market. That's a significant increase from 669 the prior week. Sellers are entering the market at a healthy pace. Last year at this time, 815 new listings arrived in a comparable week. So we're running just a touch below that pace. The spring selling season is alive and well. May was really busy. Now, here's a number I want to spend some time on. Price reductions. There were 850 total price reductions recorded this week. That's actually down from 910 last week, a 6.6% improvement and meaningfully below the same week last year when there were 981 reductions. The 12-week rolling average for reductions is around 710, so 850 is still above trend, but the direction of movement this week is encouraging. Of those 850 reductions, 442 were 15,000 or more. That's a relatively new data point we've been tracking since January of this year, so I can't yet give you a year-over-year comparison on that specific number. But I can tell you that when roughly 11% of the active listing pool sees a price reduction in a single week, it's a clear signal. Sellers who overprice are feeling it. The lesson for sellers is simple. Price correctly from the start using current data from your neighborhood, not wishful thinking from peak prices in 2022. Homes that are priced right are not the ones showing up in that reduction count. Bumpable listings, homes under contract that are still accepting backup offers because the people that bought it still have a contingency to sell their house, sat at 102 this week, 21 of which are in Washington. That's essentially flat week over week. A relatively small number in the context of 3,546 total pending deals. That indicates that sellers do not want to accept offers that are contingent on somebody else selling their house because the market is still a little uncertain if a seller doesn't price correctly, and the sellers don't want to accept those offers. They don't know if those buyers are going to price their home correctly. The supply picture is more choices for buyers than in recent months, some seller pricing pressure as the market responds to overpriced listings, but overall inventory is still running below last year's levels. Now let's look at what buyers are actually doing in this market, because the demand data tells an important story. 536 homes sold this week. That's down from 607 the prior week, an 11.7% drop week over week. Here's what matters more than that week-to-week swing. Compared to the same week last year, we're up 11.9%. Same week in 2025, only 479 homes sold. We closed 536 this week. Buyer volume is running measurably ahead of where it was 12 months ago. The 12-week rolling average for homes sold is about 536 per week. We're right on trend. New pending deals, homes that went under contract this week, came in at 724. That's up from 670 the prior week, a solid 8% increase, and ahead of last year's 680. The forward-looking pipeline is growing. When new pendings rise, that means closings 4 to 6 weeks from now are likely to hold up or increase. Total pending deals, the full pipeline of homes under contract, sits at 3,546, up from 3,527 last week, and above last year's 3,403. The market's purchase pipeline is healthy and expanding. Let me add a monthly data point that I think provides excellent context. May 2026 closed with an average sale price of $649,172 across 1,811 transactions with an average of 59 days on the market. Compare that to May 2025, $631,093 across 1,923 transactions, 55 days on the market. May 2026 showed 2.9% price appreciation year over year, though about 112 fewer homes closed in the month. More price, slightly fewer transactions. That's a stable market, not a declining one. The demand picture is genuinely encouraging. Buyers are active. The pipeline is building. We're ahead of last year's pace on closed volume and new contracts. Pricing data is where I want to slow down and make sure you're reading the numbers correctly, because the headlines can be misleading if you look only at the week over week or year over year figures without context. The average sale price this week was $629,414. That compares to $647,220 the same week last year, a 2.8% decline. The median sales price was $562,000 versus $585,000 last year, a 3.9% decline. If you stop there, you might think prices are falling off a cliff, but I want to show you a different lens. The 12-week rolling average for average sale price is approximately $631,930. The current week's number, $629,414, is almost exactly on that rolling trend line. There's no sharp drop here, just normal week-to-week fluctuation around a stable central tendency. The same holds for median. The 12-week rolling median sits at about $561,391. This week's $562,000 median is essentially right at that average. Now compare those rolling averages to last year. Last year's 12-week rolling average for price at this same point in time was approximately $629,351 for average price and $561,050 for median price. So in rolling average terms, prices are almost exactly flat year over year. The single week comparisons are noisy. The trend comparison is smoother. That's why I keep saying don't read a single week's numbers as a trend. Look at the rolling averages. They smooth out the noise and show you exactly what's happening. That said, I want to be honest. Prices are not appreciating at the pace they were in 2021 and 2022. We're in a flat to modestly correcting market on a year-over-year basis for specific weeks. The 2.9% May year-over-year gain is probably a more representative current picture of annual appreciation than any single week's comparison. So let's bring together price reductions and days on the market because they tell a connected story about seller behavior and market timing. Price reductions, 850 this week, down from 910 last week, down from 981 the same week last year. That year-over-year improvement is meaningful. Sellers are either pricing better up front or more homes are selling before a cut becomes necessary. Probably some of both. The 15,000 plus reduction category came in at 442 homes with significant cuts, 422 in Oregon, 20 in Washington. This is still a category I'm watching develop as we build more historical data on it. Days on market, the average was 50 this week, down sharply from 57 last week. The median was 17 days, up slightly from 16 last week. Let's put those numbers into context. The 12-week rolling average for average days on market is about 61 days. This week's 50 is well below that rolling average, which tells me the market is picking up speed as we move into peak season. We typically see faster sales velocities in May and June than in the fall and winter, and that pattern is playing out right now this year. The median days on market of 17 days is the number that often surprises people. Half of all homes that closed this week had been on the market for 17 days or less. That is fast. It means that a meaningful portion of listings, the well-priced ones, the ones that show well, the ones in great locations, they're getting offers and going under contract in under 3 weeks. Some of those are going in days. The other half of the listings are taking longer, some significantly longer. The day on market distribution in this market is bimodal. Homes that are priced right move quickly. Homes that are overpriced or need work sit and accumulate days and more days and more days until the seller adjusts. The reduction data confirms this. For buyers, if you see a home with low days on the market, you may need to move with urgency and a competitive offer. If you see high days on the market, there may be negotiating room. But first, understand why it's been sitting. For sellers, a well-prepared, correctly priced listing has a very good chance of selling quickly in this market. I want to finish with 2 data points that I think are underappreciated in most market discussions: sale to list ratios and where mortgage rates actually are right now. The average sale price came in at 100.06% of asking price this week. That is the first time in recent weeks that the average crossed back above 100%. Last week it was 99.76%. Yeah, I know, they're pretty much the same. The median sale price came in at exactly 100% of asking. What does this mean in plain language? On average, sellers are getting what they're asking. Some are getting a bit more, some are getting a little bit less. But the midpoint is right at asking. This is not a market where buyers are routinely coming in 5% below asking and getting it. Well-priced homes are still selling at or above list. The average sale price as a percentage of original asking price, which includes all the homes that needed price reductions before selling, was 97.92%. Homes that required reductions sold for about 2.1% below where they started. That's real money on a $600,000 home. About $12,500 left on the table by overpricing. Priced right the first time. The 12-week rolling average for the average to asking ratio is about 99.95%, essentially at parity with asking price. That's a balanced market with a slight tilt towards sellers who price and present well. Mortgage rates. This week, the 30-year fixed rate moved to 6.375%, up from 6.25% last week, according to OnPoint. APR is 6.456% with quarter point. Source, OnPoint Community Credit Union, was of data as of June 9th, 2026. The 12-week rolling average rate is about 6.18%. So this week's rate is slightly above recent trend, but not dramatically so. For context, rates peaked at around 6.75% in mid-April before pulling back through May. We're currently in the middle of a range that has held roughly between 6% and 6.75% over the past few months. For a buyer putting 20% down on Portland's current median priced home of $562,000, the principal and interest payment at 6.375% is approximately $2,806 per month. That's the real world number that drives purchase decisions. It's not cheap, but it's also not the 7% territory that was putting real pressure on affordability last year. Buyers who have been waiting for rates to drop significantly below 6% have largely not seen it happen. The Fed's signaling remains cautious. If you're waiting for 5%, you may be waiting a long time, and you're also missing the chance to buy while demand is moderate and inventory is the highest it's been in months. And don't forget, if prices start to jump because interest rates went down, you're just going to pay more for the house. It's all going to balance out. Buy a house now while you want one. Let me give you my overall read on this market. Supply is building. Good news for buyers who have been frustrated by limited choices. Demand is healthy. Good news for sellers who are priced correctly. Prices are stable on a rolling basis with some week-to-week softness in year-over-year comparisons that I think reflects normal seasonal noise more than a structural shift. The pipeline of pending deals is strong and growing. If you're a seller, the data is telling you to price right from day one. Homes that are priced correctly are selling quickly at or above asking price. Homes that start too high are sitting, accumulating days in the market, making people think there's something wrong with them, and eventually selling for, in my opinion, much less than if they'd been priced right at the launch. If you're a buyer, you have more options than you've had in months, and seller leverage has moderated. You're not going to steamroll a well-priced home with a lowball offer, but you have real negotiating room on homes that have been sitting or that need reductions. If you want to understand any of this in the context of your specific situation, your neighborhood, your price point, the size of your house, your timeline, that's what I do. Call or text me at 503-683-1885. You can also search available homes and explore market data at pdxhomesforsale.com. If this kind of weekly breakdown is valuable to you, please subscribe, hit that like button, and share this with someone who's thinking about buying or selling in the Portland area, and that includes Washington. I'll be back next week with another full analysis for you. See you soon.